over the course of a 20-month period, you had built a multi-billion dollar business. You hit the $1 million run rate in 10 months right out of college.
We sold whatever we could get our hands on. For the people that truly believe in themselves, that take action, dude, it's a home run. It's about the easiest thing in the world.
Today, we got a killer conversation. David Riggs, founder of Numa Media, 20 months, 2 years. David went on and built a multi-million dollar business. And this year in 2023, they're looking to continue to stack on that. One of the best and savviest entrepreneurs I've worked with, really gets strategy, really gets sourcing talent and building a great culture.
Numa Media is a web and SEO agency, started as web, turned into SEO afterwards, and really just taking a content-led approach to everything. We can get super tactical in that if we want, but the biggest thing nowadays is that SEO is a channel, content marketing is the strategy. A lot of SEO firms just do the channel. We tend to do content marketing all together and just happen to be good at SEO as well. So it gives us a unique advantage of actually helping people build a content marketing function, a content marketing strategy, while we'll distribute that out on SEO and really own that channel for you. It also gives a lot of companies the opportunity to build content off the back of Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, doing its TikToks, video scripts, podcasts, you name it. It's a very cool avenue and kind of niche that we built into. And then Ventures, which is our holdco. So
how many are in it?
4. And we have a really strong 4 right now, which I'm excited for. So Ventures is a holdco, going out and buying as many companies as we can. Numa and the talent at Numa has a very unique ability to say that we are going to do X and then actually do X and act on X and act on it really quickly and really with a high quality. And that is rare to come by in the business world, especially the agency world. So
I share the same sentiment, and we were just looking at a business where the guy was full of shit. And obviously, as you know, there's a lot of people that are full of shit. Most people will say something, do something else, or not even do it at all, or just blatantly lie. And I think we actually had a situation. So for everyone that doesn't know, Dave and I partnered up. I bought into a business that he was running. I said I was going to do one thing. And then after 90 days, I had to raise my hand. I was like, I actually overcommitted and I actually pulled out. I need to cop out. This isn't for me. Sometimes you could think you're going to say you're going to do something. There's also a lot of times we could overextend. It's okay just to be like, I could cop out.
It's an actual skill to know how to cop out gracefully. This is the worst thing you can do. The worst thing you can do is overextend yourself. The second worst thing you can do is overextend yourself and ghost that person and just not really make it clear that you're backing out. And that gets into a whole different discussion, but it's something that we really coach in the team members is like, look, Numa's fast paced. Everybody says it, but we actually are. I remember our COO said it as a joke early on. Numa's kind of a dangerous place to work. The culture that we say is actually the culture that we have. And the culture that we say is fast moving. It's fun. Like you're getting in, you're contributing as quickly as possible. There is no lollygagging. This is not corporate America. There's not 19,000 videos you need to watch about human resources. We dive in and we go. It just creates a very cool work environment. But the thing that we coach is, hey, do not overextend yourself. If you do overextend yourself, make it really clear that you have, because that's the easiest way to solve that issue and understand what not to do.
I want to go to the start of our relationship. So we did a barter deal in 2020, and then we went into a paid consulting relationship where the month before we engaged, you had done $10,000. And then over the course of a 20-month period, you had built a multi-billion dollar business, which is fucking unheard of. And then I actually looked back over the course of a 10-month period, you had built $1 million business. I want to go to the early stages of how we did that. Some things that are popping into my mind because you knew how to generate demand.
The marketing angle we always kind of had to our disposal because of one, I had LinkedIn following, but two, kind of the roles that I had professionally in 9-to-5s were very marketing, demand, customer focused.
So we went through early stuff, sales, process, management. You learned how to sell. You were always a natural salesman, but then you put a process behind it and you fucking tore it up.
I think for you it was 4-call system. I think I condensed it to 3, but it's
5-step sales process, but it's like a 2-3 call sales process.
Yeah, that's exactly what we still use.
What were the big insights early on around actually selling, closing deals?
I think sales actually gets a bad brand and a bad rap. I was in college and coming out of college and everybody was like, sales is the most important skill ever. People listening to this podcast, I guarantee you've heard the same thing. I kind of got sick of hearing that. I think of sales, I think of car salesman. I'm not that. I take a different approach to things. It's much more the relationship side. It's not just like try and get a yes as quickly as possible. And 2 things, right? I think that 5-step sales process, but working with you gave me enough insight of sales is not as pushy as people make it out to seem. When you have a product you believe in, sales is a lot more fun. And I always see sales as being something that both sides hate, but it's a natural evil. Definitely got over that real quick working with you. It doesn't have to be the evil that has to have a seat at the table. It's quite fun if you have a product you believe in and you know how to sell it and you have a process to do that. That's the biggest thing. I think that's where a lot of agency owners struggle, is that don't have a ton of a belief in their product, or quite frankly, they have belief in their product, but they lack confidence. Those 2 things are far more important than sales and than whatever process you have. But if you have confidence and you have the mindset about your product and you have have a process, that's a nice trio to have, especially if you're selling something.
You learned how to sell. That helped big time. And we started to scale from there. I'm looking, some of the things we built the OS. So we started to house your SOPs.
Yeah.
We found a temporary person to come in and support on the operational front. And then we started to teach your team how to execute.
Yeah.
So walk us through same thing, early things that you learned that ultimately led to in 10 months going from a business that does $10,000 a month to a business that's doing over 85K a month. How did those things compound and actually lead to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think hindsight, the easiest way to explain it, and this is so overplayed, but we've all seen Ford, the Ford car. Henry Ford was the assembly line. One thing comes in, certain process passes to the next team, on and on and on. I always saw agency business, especially the web dev side of things, is just an assembly line, right? You come in, you close the deal. First step is strategy. Second step is design. Third step is copy. And we do things very different. A lot of people start with copy and then design. We found our way to move it quickly and efficiently, which is what our ICP wanted. The most important thing is we built something that we had confidence in, and then we didn't over perfect it. We didn't over articulate it. We didn't spend so much time with it. As soon as we had like a 6 to 7 step process of taking a site from strategy to launch, we sold against it as much as possible. All we did was sell against it. We didn't have rates. We just sold. Somebody wanted a $2,000 website, sold it. Somebody, we could get a 10 grand, sold it. We sold whatever we could get our hands on up until the point that we were at capacity. And then we developed the market rate, which was essentially 75 percentile of those prices. Point being there is that we built a system and then we threw as much quantity at that system as possible. Literally as many websites as we could build. I was doing 1-pagers, I was doing 10-pagers, I was doing 90-pagers. Whatever we could get into that system to test it, we did, and used all of that to actually iterate on the system and make it better. And in a lot of ways, I would say that process hasn't stopped. That's what we're still doing. We have a process, we build a site. Nowadays, we're big enough. Every month, we look at every recently launched project and determine how we could differ or better our system to make sure that it accounts for maybe the potential small drawback we had in a project. That was really where we started, but we're using the same system as well. Built the system and sold against the system, and then iterated on the system as much as possible. Since done the same thing with SEO and website management, the other two service lines we have. Find the baseline system. We don't perfect it. We just find people that we can deliver value with the system that we have at that exact moment, and just get people using that system as much as possible.
And just to recap for you guys listening, what we did was we mapped out his process. We built the content surrounding that, SOPs and trainings. When you went into SEO, I remember you showing me, hey, like we could literally get a content writer like to be writing SEO in a week with how good this process is. And you had really good documentation. That led to, as the story of sales and that, you start to close that volume. We brought on someone to help run the operation. Let's not go into the downside of how that person didn't work, but let's go into the upside of like the growth that ultimately led to. What were your early learnings in that first year on bringing on someone to run a department for you and ultimately train them, him, and then the team that you go around him to scale?
There's, and I'll even use a more frequent example, but the learnings still apply. There's hiring for tactics and there's hiring for strategy is the way that I've really started to break it down. Hiring for tactics is an easy example, would be an SEO content writer. There's a little bit of strategy in there, and I don't want people to take an inch and run a yard, whatever that saying is. It's totally not it. I'm terrible with those sayings, but you get the idea.
Give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
I don't want them to do that, but like a content writer, pretty tactical. When we assign content, there's a type of content involved. Is it a comparison piece? Is it a listicle? Is it a how-to? Is it going to be a guide? Is it going to be a roundup? Is it going to be whatever that style is? We have tactics to do that. We need somebody that can write, but we'll provide kind of the insight of what to do and how to write it. And we get the deliverable. Give me the inputs, give me the writer, we get an output. That's very tactical based hiring. That's great whenever you're managing it and you need people underneath you to help you fulfill roles. As soon as you hire for that quote unquote manager, that changes quite a bit because you can't hire tactics. In my opinion, it's not a bunch of tactics because tactics are just if X then Y. To appropriately hire a manager based off of tactics, you'd have to have a billion things tactically laid out for them to follow. And at that point, you're better off just hiring a manager that understands people, understands the strategy of managing, and let them rip and let them build how to manage those book of business. So one thing that we still do today, whenever we have to go hire a manager, is that we look for somebody that strategically understands whatever they're hiring for. And if we just hired a website management director, somebody that understands customer service, understands how to actually handle tickets, manage tickets, update the people when they're done, update people when we can't get them done as quickly, update them if there's a problem, understand the strategy of all that, and then we just kind of fed them a team to manage as well. I definitely say there's two sides to it, but the biggest thing that I would say, I guess, coming from all of that, you can definitely hire a manager too early. You can delegate too early. I love automating. I love delegating. I love giving other people my responsibilities and firing myself from a role that I'm not good at. But I've seen many of businesses die because they delegate and automate far too quickly because they know to build a business, they have to delegate and automate. As soon as they have the option to, they delegate and automate, they get rid of it to somebody else, they're in trouble because they actually haven't built a strategy or tactics. So they're just giving somebody an idea and saying, here, you manage it now. I'd equally say there's a world where you can go too quickly. Our first 20 web clients and our first 20 SEO clients, I managed by myself day to day. Project managed, strategy led, helped with tactics. I even did some of the blog writing. I remember there's a weekend I wrote like 10,000 words of content because we had to get it out. But equally, it's trained me enough to where now I know what it's like to be in the trenches and can help manage it as well, or help now manage the manager who manages the entire team. So you don't hear this a lot. I'm not even sure if you'd agree with me to an extent, but like there's a benefit of getting in the weeds. You can definitely over delegate, over automate, and jump the gun a bit. I found a lot of value in me being in the weeds, probably a little too late at times, but we've built a very systematic business because of it. I think everybody on the team has a strong understanding of where the weeds are and what all that entails.
I do think there's a benefit of understanding the weeds of your operation. We have my COO, Matt. He's working on a lot of structural systems for us right now. And one of the things that he's supposed to be owning is further development of our talent for our consultants. And because obviously I built the business, I know how to do it. I'm like, hey, you keep doing that. I'll train them. I'll get down and dirty with them because that's what's needed. But even at Amazon, every peak season, it literally have all levels of the company, even the levels of executives that aren't even in the warehouse. There are people going into the warehouse and going into Path, as it's called. I think there's value to that because you understand what you're looking at, what you're seeing. And I think it's so easy to get disillusioned and lost and just focus on bullshit and just look at numbers. But if you actually know, it's really easy to correlate success when you can see it.
If you know the weeds and you can get into them on a notice, you just see things a little bit differently. You can catch some of the issues a lot quicker. Because to other people, that's how it's always been. To you, it's a little bit different because you see it from all angles.
100%.
To grow a business, you need to sell, you need to operate, manage, things like that. I think the one art form that a lot of people forget, though, is the product and service improvement. And I think that's probably the most important thing that's contributed to our
We built
success
that
today.
early.
We built
that early.
autopsies. I use autopsies. I don't
Still use it.
You and Colin don't like the word because it's hard to spell. I butcher it, but I still use it because I think it paints a really clear picture, although it's a little rough around the analogy edges. But autopsies, when somebody dies, they cut you open, they figure out what didn't work that made you die. I don't know what they do with that information, nor do I care. But what we do whenever a project ends is that we cut the project open and we're like, okay, what worked and what didn't work? What went really well? What didn't go well? And we look at that across every project in the business that still closes to this day, which is a whole lot of them. And we determine how to improve the product. Sometimes, easy answer, right? Hey, that's just, it happened. There's nothing we can do. We just need to be aware of it. We're going to move on. No real action is going to be taken. Other times, we overhaul our entire onboarding process like we did a month ago.
This is the reason why you're one of the best clients that's ever come through ADF in the terms of adoption and speed to go from 0 to you'll exceed 3 million. Did you exceed 3 mil last year?
2.
Yeah, you did too. But I think one of the reasons that I know thousands of entrepreneurs, literally thousands, and there are only 0.4% of entrepreneurs will ever hit 8 figures.
Is that actually the number?
That's the stat. 1 in 250.
What is 7 figures?
4 in 100. And I do not know. There's got to be some serendipitous correlation between the 4% and the 0.4%. It's a 10.
Oh, yeah.
You understand all these things. You're a really good operator, but has made you're an 8-figure entrepreneur in the making. It's not that you're not an 8-figure entrepreneur. It's just waiting for time to catch up for the revenue to show that. You focus on continuous improvement and continually get better. 2, you are exceptional building a great team and having a great culture. As I observed your process of you growing, the talent you were able to attract to you, and this is kind of where I'd love to take this next question, but you built a good business with good processes. The processes always got better because we were always studying them and learning from ourselves. But then we start to get really good fucking people in them. Like your head of sales is a dog, literally, Nate Dog. Your COO is great. You still have Bailey on the team?
Yeah.
When we were engaging in those first 20 months, that was something that really stood out. You started building an all-star team. And I think that's something that I've always known. I didn't have to really articulate to you. We had a conversation. You need to be putting time to recruit in advance. And you took that. I never had to say it ever fucking again. Like literally ever. I said it one time and you heard it and it stuck. You got it. How are you still building such a great team?
It comes down to a couple things. And it's exactly the same as selling services. You have inbound, you have outbound. The inbound is all going to be about the brand. And I think there's a couple of unique things that we've done. One, we pretty much across the board have positive experiences with both clients, partners, but employees. And that's the cool thing. Every employee that's come through Numa that's had a true leadership role, and there's very few of them, but a few of them have left. They use it as a stepping stone. They go to the next big thing. Numa is the best thing that happened to their career at that point in time to go to the next thing. I'm looking at this one yawning. That's number one. Number two, I'd say as well, right? We hold relationships to a very high standard to make sure everyone that engages with Numa is going to have a very good experience and it's going to be a memorable experience. For the most part, I'd say I can count on my hand the number of negative experiences that both clients and partners have had. Literally the ones I'm thinking of in my head, we total to like 5. Over the course of 200 clients in 3 years, I'm taking 5 negative experiences. It's going to happen. You're going to have 5. You're going to have the negative experiences. What matters more is how you have the positive ones and the impact that you have with those people. In short, diving and digging deep, right? You can go Command F or advanced searched on Twitter. People talk about Numa without ever tagging me or the Numa account. They just talk about us. Oh, it's cool that he did this, or oh, it's cool that Numa does this. We've built enough of a brand that people are excited to come work for us, and it's like the coolest thing ever. Number 2, and then kind of 1B, I would say to that point, having an onboarding system for your employees is one of the most important things. I did not value it as much as I do today. We have had
We did
4
cover
new
that
hires.
for everyone wondering. That was
We
one of the
did,
things we
but
did.
and I would even say early on, I just needed to get people rocking and rolling. What I found though is that whenever you have a good onboarding experience and people feel part of something bigger than themselves, they now want all their friends to work with you as well. We've hired 4 people in the past month and we've gotten the best referrals to hire the next 2 from those 4.
We covered in year 1, but then we had to go back to that in year 2.
That was the biggest pain point, is that we couldn't turn marketer to Numa marketer or SEO writer to a Numa SEO writer quick enough.
For everyone listening, the things to do that are good technical onboarding. So I give the analogy of onboarding should be comparable to college orientation, super technical, be here at this time, this hour, every hour of the day. And then the emotional onboarding. Here are our values. Here's how we do business. Here's why we do business.
That's like 1A and 1B, I guess I would say. Find good talent, build a brand, make sure it's good from the inbound perspective. When you hire them, make sure it's a flawless or as close to flawless experience as possible. What I would say, our experience is not flawless, but the bar is set so low by every other agency that exists, in my opinion, at least the ones that we hire from. Ours looks like an A+ scenario, and I'd give us realistically a B. There's so much more we can do in onboarding, but because everybody else is a D, we look great. I would say that. Number 2, though, you have to go outbound. Some of the team members that we have in our team knew about Numa, wanted to work for us, did not really consider it until I approached them and said, hey, I want you to come join the team. Here's what we can offer. Here's the role. You got to be afraid to kind of pitch your business as a service as well if you truly believe in it. And the last thing I'd say about culture, I bring back to sports, which is, where a lot of my analogies come from. Culture is not built with a set of values. A set of values can drive your culture, but you have to link back as many of the daily actions as possible. So I like using the terminology that founders and owners need to be photographers of their business. Every time a good action happens that aligns with value, you need to literally photograph it in Slack with a screenshot, put it to a team channel and say, hey, Colin is a great example of pushing the envelope. Take this example here when he was working with X client. He pushed the envelope by doing A, B, and C. Make sure you're doing the same in your day-to-day actions with clients. I can't tell you how many of those messages I've sent. We're probably over 50 to 60 now over the past year and a half, but those are highly important to really build culture, state culture, and make sure it's ingrained in the people that work day in and day out.
I like how you internalized it and made it your own. Photograph it, highlight it. You built all this multi-million-dollar business. You started doing a hold co. Why holding co? And how do you do it where it doesn't distract you?
Yeah, and I wish I had a visual because it's easier to pitch, right? But like Numa Media required a lot of my time. Up. I hired people, and now it's requiring less and less of my time every single day. Now, there are the odd spikes where some days are busy. Today was pretty light. I got to actually get my hands dirty and build, but build in Numa Ventures instead. There's 2 answers that I'll give to this, both the personal finance answer and then also the business answer. I would say personal finance. There's so many different ways to take this, but people get wealthy by owning things. They don't get wealthy by making income. If somebody really wanted to, could give me all sorts of things because like that's a Robert Kiyosaki thing. Like that's a very overplayed cliched thing, but it's truthfully the answer, right? Like people who are extremely wealthy own things. They do not necessarily pull income always from those things. I'm a big believer in like what you do with 8F is very similar to what we kind of do with PV. We're just owning the shares. You have a lot more clients. It's different models. I could spin up a really dope consulting agency just doing SEO agencies, just doing service-based businesses about what I wanted to do. And then my thought process was, why don't I really increase the upside and increase the incentive and take equity? You're essentially getting me to consult for free now because we're going to come in early on and probably run your profits low to grow and invest the business so you have better profits later on. So part of it is the personal finance. I want to own things at the end of the day. I want assets that I can actually grab. I'm not worried too much about income right now. I'm worried about distribution. I want to make sure I have a strong cash flow from payments of things that I own, dividends from things that I own, because it's far more important. That's the personal finance side. The business side, I would say, when a client comes to us and has a really positive experience, they start asking us about other service providers because we set the bar so high. David, do you know anybody who does bookkeeping like you do? Do you know anybody that does content writing like you do? Do you know anybody that does email copywriting copywriting like you do? Do you know anybody that does Webflow development like you do? Do you know anybody that can staff overseas talent like you do? Now I have yes to all of those. And I can say, yeah, go talk to Diego, go talk to Andre, go talk to Daphne, go talk to X, Y, and Z companies that I now have ownership or equity in, that I can play a little bit of like a roundabout game, because acquiring the client is still the absolute hardest thing to do in a business. Keeping the client is one of the most valuable things you can do in a business. Now I can keep the client forever. I can turn a lifetime value from 50 to 75,000 in Uma, probably a little bit higher, $250,000 by sending you to 4 to 5 other businesses if you need the services. In a year, 2 years, 3 years, I'd love to have 30 businesses that we're just pinging around, right? If one person gets a client, everybody's going to benefit with some ownership or equity on the backside for me. So that's a business play. I've become very good at retaining clients, retaining people, retaining those relationships. And a lot of agencies do not do that. Gives us a superpower, not only to keep people happy at one company, but to keep them happy at all sorts of companies. So that's the finance, that's a business. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm excited to build a lot of those agencies, because you and I learned a lot of the operating system. And quite frankly, that was the investment that helped build Numa Ventures as well. We're going in, we're finding either companies that we want to invest in, buy out, and we're using the same model and same operating system, partial to you, partial to EOS. And we're just overhauling things, putting them in place, and then bringing it back out. Like the easiest thing you study in finance to understand how finance, debt, cash flow, all that stuff works is like the Burr model in real estate. You can buy something, you can renovate it, and then you essentially just rent it back out. That's the abbreviated Burr, right? Your cash on cash return, the money you get out of that's very minimal. My whole thought process was, why hasn't somebody done that for a business? And people have, you know, private equity, you know, venture capital, all have their own flair, but like, why don't people look for already cash flowing profitable businesses, buying them out from an owner that doesn't want to be there anymore? Hint, most people over 65 own businesses and are going to sell them in the next decade. Buy those out, put in your own operating system, bring some technology to the interface, treat customers better than they could, and then do it again. Repeat all over again with another business. That's the overarching model. But yeah, having fun with it. There's 4 in there right now. We have 2 good partners in the business with us as well. So a lot of growth is coming. We have one company at $6,000 a month, one company at $10,000 a month, another company at 8 to 10, which is pretty early. And then we have one other that's at 15. So we have a lot of recurring revenue coming from all those businesses, which is exciting.
Nuts, man. It's beautiful. Awesome. Well, dude, if people want to check you out, social,
Twitter, David W. Riggs, LinkedIn, David W. Riggs. Shoot me an email if you can find it. I will respond.
If someone's listening to this and they're like, maybe I should check out 8F too, what would you say to those people thinking about your success and not thinking about it for themselves?
Realistically, what I've told other people, if you don't make your money back on the 8F investment, you're probably the problem. The stuff that he and 8F in general are going to gear you up with is going to be stuff that you can use for years after. You and I worked together. We dug into a lot of information. I still use that information today in Numa Media and Numa Ventures when I consult. There's a lot of ways I've monetized what I ended up paying you for knowledge, but equally, the investment in you is probably 100x at this point, but it's because I went and used it. If you're somebody that believes in yourself, that knows you're going to take advantage of the knowledge that you're going to get from the 8F team, it's an easy home run. You just got to make sure to trust yourself and actually use that stuff. That's the honest to God truth, because I think if somebody comes in and they aren't a true entrepreneur, they'll find out quickly. But for the people that I know that have gone through 8F, that truly believe in themselves, that take action, dude, it's a home run. It's about the easiest thing in the world.
You hit the $1 million run rate in 10 months right out of college. It took me a little bit longer because I was figuring out my model and all that shit. I was a consultant for 18 months, but then it took me 6 months once I built a team to hit it, right? It's not rocket science. It's just another process.
I'd say on that too, which people have to get expectations out of their head. I can log on to Twitter right now. Somebody's bragging about, oh, we went to 0 to 30K a month in 1 month. Here's how. Retweet for my template. My issue with that though is that a lot of those things equally fizzle out. There's a world in which you can build a business that grows very quickly and you can scale it to the moon, but it breaks right after because of operational deficiencies, fulfillment deficiencies, team deficiencies. I think one of the unique things about working with you is that if you look at our MRR at Numa, it has been a consistent growth every single month. It's not roller coaster, right? It's not up and down, up and down. It's just been essentially a flat growing line. I could hand this to somebody and Numa's going to be around in 5 years. I have no doubt I would put my life savings on it. It's not a con. It's not something you can spin up and grab money from quickly. It's something that has inherent value. And I think that's the biggest thing in working with you, right? That you're not teaching people or coaching people, or an 8F, I guess, isn't doing that just to build a business or just to make money. It's to build something that's going to actually last and have some inherent value.
Guys, give him a follow. Guy's a real G. Knows what the fuck he's talking about. And dude, thank you for coming on.